This is it, people. It's all happening. It's the last one. Follow along with the live draft board and watch our pick-by-pick analysis tonight. We're calling the action from the 2024 FFPC's Pros versus Joe's Tequila League number 6 to find out who's going to make or who's going to win a 2025 FFPC Main Event entry to try to win $1 million next year. Farrell Elliott and Dave Terpoli are joining me. I'm Eric Balkman. You know me from the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, the Better Sports Network's High Stakes Fantasy Football Show, and of course the Fantasy Football Players Championship. The final live 2024 FFPC Pros versus Joe's draft starts now. All the Bulkaholics and for LAX tuning in tonight, thank you so much. I am going to be joined by my co-host shortly. Let me just tell you what's going on. It's the final of 6 special episodes here for you. The 2024 FFPC Pros versus Joe's Tequila League. We're covering it for the entire duration tonight. You can chime in with us on YouTube, X, Facebook, in the chat rooms. Connect with us on X at HSFFR. I'm at Eric Balkman, and Dave is at Dave Terp. Check out Farrell's Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at KFFSC.com as well. Post on our Facebook page at facebook.com/HSFFR. And of course, high stakes fantasy football at gmail.com is the email to send it to if you want to have your question read live on air. We'll try to get to all the chat room questions from YouTube, X, and Facebook, and as well as your posts and emails throughout the broadcast. Thanks to our producer and mutual friend, Rob, and our audio engineer, my best friend, Bryce. Cannot do it, speaking of best friends, cannot do this broadcast without my best friends, Dave Terpoli, Farrell Elliott. Welcome in tonight, guys. So excited to be doing this one last ride for with you in 2024.
One last. I think, it's good.
We got a fun one tonight. We got a good group.
Right, we do.
A big finish, Terp.
We always do.
We'll get to the big finish here shortly, and I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to bring it up right now. The draft is already underway. You can see it here from FantasyAlarm.com. Howard Bender is picking in the first spot. Kevin Borg, the FFPC Joe, is drafting in the second spot tonight. FFMastermind.com's Michael Nazarek is drafting third. Michael Mann, back-to-back Michaels here. FFPC Joe drafting fourth tonight. Ryan Kramer and Sean Green, the hosts of the Sports Gambling Podcast, are drafting fifth, followed by longtime friend of the show and an FFPC best ball expert, Ryan Santos, the Joe there, drafting from the sixth spot. John Hansen from FantasyPoints.com is drafting seventh. In the 8-hole is David Coman, longtime FFPC player. Doug Orth from Fantasy Football Today will be picking ninth tonight. Right behind him is Don Terminello at the 10 spot. In the 11 slot, it is John Paulson, the final FFPC Pro, the final industry pro tonight. And then Rob Abbott and Mark Barrett are going to be picking 12th tonight. We already have some action here. Farrell, you've been saying this, basically every night we've been doing this. First round has been kind of uneventful. Bender takes McCaffrey tonight. I was on Fantasy Alarm earlier with him today. No surprise that he ends up going with McCaffrey there after our conversation. Lamb to Borg, and then Hill to Nazarek as he eschews Bijan Robinson and Breece Hall to go with the elite pass catcher in Miami. Robinson is not passed up by Michael Mann. Breece Hall goes to Kramer and Green, the Sports Gambling Podcast host, here at the 5 spot. Justin Jefferson to Ryan Santos. John Hansen takes Jamar Chase at the 107. David Coman goes with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Doug Orth is at 109. He goes with Garrett Wilson at the 109. Farrell, we have not seen CeeDee Lamb slip at all, despite the contract negotiations that are either ongoing or not ongoing in Dallas. It seems like most of the pros and Joes alike have no problems taking CeeDee Lamb at the 102, like Kevin Borg did tonight.
Everybody believes there'll be Kumbah in Dallas, and CeeDee Lamb will waltz into the building and pick up just where he left off. I wonder how many weeks, how many days, how many preseason games have to be missed before there's some trepidation for first-round CeeDee Lamb drafters.
The other thing that we could bring up here, Terp, is Tyreek Hill. Obviously not. He does want a new contract, but I don't think it's as dire as the Lamb situation, even if you would call it dire in Dallas. I don't know if I would. The thing with Hill, soft tissue injuries, he's been hit with them, minor, nothing major over the course of the last couple of years, but he is getting up there. He turns 30 this year. Tyreek Hill, again, at 103 tonight. It seems like the soft tissue stuff is not bothering the high-stakes players.
Not at all. I mean, he's a lock in the top 5. I don't see any way he doesn't go in the top 5 of any draft, coming up here. So, I mean, nobody's really worried about that. He just brings so much to the table. We all know about his game-breaking ability. He's one of the best, in the game right now. And, with the high scoring in this best ball league, I mean, again, you're trying to come in first, and a guy like Tyreek Hill in the first round, you really can't go wrong with that.
I think if I get a 1 through 3, guys, I'll just draft a running back under contract.
Farrell, is that
no matter what?
You say that, but if you did have a top 3 pick, are you taking all 3 of those running backs ahead of Lamb, Chase, Jefferson, Hill?
Probably so, because I haven't got. I've been in the middle to the right on all my main event picks. But if we're focusing on this, I'm going to take one of those wide receivers because this is not a main event draft. But I'm projecting out to that. I already have 1 foot in Planet Hollywood. But my boy J.R. Fenton got a panoramic suite. They upgraded him to a panoramic suite. So
those are
already,
sweet. Yeah.
Big time.
Fenton knows people in Vegas, so he got hooked up. Those panorama suites are awesome.
They are.
Let's complete the first round here. AJ Brown to Don Terminello at the 110. Sam Laporta goes at the 111 tonight. Puka Nacua at the 112. Farrell, the majority of the pros versus Joe's drafts, I don't want to say all of them because I'm not remembering all of them in my head. Plus, I haven't looked at the slow draft in a couple of days, the slow FFPC Pros versus Joe's. Is this the first time we've seen a tight end in the first round? John Paulson gets himself Laporta here to go old school by taking a tight end in the first round of an FFPC tight end premium draft.
Haven't we seen some of them? Haven't we seen some tight ends?
Have they gone in the first round?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I take that back.
Not many.
In the first one, Todd Burrows on last Sunday, he went back-to-back with, I want to say, Kelsey McBride right there.
I think so.
I should have Brandon Murchison. I don't think he did it. He was on this past Sunday night calling the action after he drafted a week ago. I don't think he did either. But now the tight ends are coming off the board here, fast and furious, guys. Trey McBride to Abbott and Verrett at the 201. Jahmyr Gibbs to John Paulson here. So he goes Lion to start, tight end, running back. Kincaid at the 203 to Don Terminello, and then Travis Kelce to Doug Orth here at the 204. Normally the tight end 4 goes off the board at the 209. So we got a half round being of tight ends being pushed up here. Terp, if you were in this draft and you're drafting on the left side of the board, do you change anything the way that you're doing as far as getting an early tight end going as far as an early tight end? Because we've seen 4 of them go off the board in the first 16 picks.
I would normally say no. I mean, especially in this format. I mean, I just think it's the best available type of situation for a while. You don't want to get too crazy. I mean, Kyle Pitts is going to be a 1-2 turn guy by the time we get to Vegas. He's just going to continue to move up draft boards. You're just seeing nothing but positivity out of him. I could see him getting past Kincaid, getting past McBride. I could even see him getting past Kelce in some drafts because obviously with that kind of money on the line, people are going to get their guys. But Ingram, I think, will stay in the 3rd round. I don't think he's going to get up there in the 2nd round. Kittle, I think when it's all said and done, likely we'll get to like the end of the 3rd. That's where I think he'll stop. So we'll see. I don't think it'll change, though. I mean, you look at a draft like this, I mean, you're starting Justin Jefferson and you get Marvin Harrison. I mean, I don't know how much better you can do than that in the 1st round. I mean, Drake London falling a little bit. There's really no downside to Team 6 right now. It's a very good start.
Michael, I don't see a downside to any of these teams, Terp. They all look like
it's hard to find a downside in the first 2 rounds. I mean, there's obviously guys who like more than the other.
I don't think you can.
It's really hard in the first 2 rounds. I mean, there's guys obviously you like more.
Projecting ahead to Planet Hollywood, and Terp, you brought it up at length the other night. As we get into Thursday night, Thursday night is the Ravens Chiefs. Is that correct?
Correct.
That is correct.
Wouldn't that just be fascinating to see unusual games between Andrews and Kelce in either direction and see what might happen?
It would be awesome. I love when those games go haywire. I know most people are the opposite. They want them to be quiet, but
it'll just shake everything up.
Andrews put up 25. Kelce put up 25. They'll be a top 6 pick, both of them.
Oh, yeah.
Because people will want the guaranteed points right off the jump, and guys are going to fall. If you're picking at the end of the draft, watch out because you could be building some super teams.
Yeah, I think about that free look too. And what about the Chiefs receivers, guys? Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy, their value is pretty volatile after that game
suspended, too. I mean,
we
talked about Rice. I mean, he was a 2nd round pick a couple months ago before all this stuff happened.
I guess the thing I have with Rice is the more I read and the more I listen, it sounds like Rice is probably not going to be suspended this year. I also know his role on the offense, I think, is a little bit more consistent than what some people are saying Browns and Worthy's would be, right?
I agree.
But if Brown spikes for, 6 for 80 and 2 touchdowns, or Xavier Worthy, maybe he goes, 4 or 5 catches for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, then all of a sudden those values change quite a bit, quite drastically in that opening weekend when we're drafting at Planet Hollywood at the FFPC live event. So I think that's something to be wary of as well. Michael Quenzel posted here in the chat that teams 4 and 5, the way that this shook out, they're going to have a pretty good selection of receivers here. And they ended up getting, as you pointed out, Terp, Harrison goes to Ryan Santos, Kramer and Green from Sports Gambling Podcast go with Devontae Adams here tonight at the 208. Maybe a little bit early on him based on, where he normally goes in drafts, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And especially when you're pairing him with Breece Hall, I
probably
think
the farthest I've seen Drake London fall.
Drake London's in the in the FFPC best ball tournament, that's the ADP I'm using for pros versus Joes, which is a little bit different. You can play it right now for $125. You can win a $300,000 grand prize. I know it's a little bit different. And by the way, shout out to Fantasy Mojo for that ADP at Fantasy Mojo on the X, fantasymojo.com, the founder of the Pros versus Joes competition. He actually came on our show Sunday, revealed the big Pros versus Joes championship belt that the overall winner is going to get this year as well. But make sure if you're playing in the FFPC, strongly consider a membership over at Fantasy Mojo. That it's going to help you out a lot. But the ADP, according to him, over the last 3 days in the FFPC best ball tournament, Drake London, 208. He has gone as late as the 303. But Drake London, to me, Terp, I think is a guy that is moving up in drafts by and large rather than moving down.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. The 303 seems just pretty crazy if you look at some of the guys that are going above him. I know tight ends people get a little crazy with Andrews and now Pitts, moving above. But to me, Drake London, where's the downside? I mean, even if, let's say, something happens to Kirk Cousins, we keep going back to Michael Penix and that pick that we all booed and laughed at. Mm-hmm. It's one of the best backup quarterback situations out there. So Drake London is a guy that if you're telling me I can get a Christian McCaffrey and get Drake London with him, I mean, I don't see any downside to that at all.
And look what Howard Bender from Fantasy Alarm is in the one slot tonight. He not only gets London to fall to him, but he gets Mark Andrews there as well, right at ADP, which you say, well, bulky, who cares? That's where he normally goes. Well, yeah, but there was 4 tight ends in the first 16 picks tonight. So to get Andrews at the 301, I think is pretty valuable. Farrell, look at that 4 spot. The FFPC Joe Michael Mann getting Bijan Robinson and Devon Achane with his first 2 picks. The only team in tonight's draft to start off running back, and he gets 2 very explosive playmakers at the position in a best ball draft. I love it.
That's my guy. Well, let's see what else he does. The Achane Mostert stack is my favorite play of the year. I just feel it's necessary.
Just love it. For best ball, Farrell, or for man?
Oh, I don't know. I like them together.
Okay, no matter what. I got it. Okay.
Probably not as high as if I would want to reach and get them here.
Too much draft capital to draft them both.
I wonder if he shares that opinion with me.
Farrell, Terp, Mostert right now, well, I guess he has climbed up in the mid-8th round. I remember the days when he was going much later than that. It seems like everybody's starting to warm up to Mostert a little bit. Even in a format like this where you're just trying to beat 11 other teams, Terp, you think that's too much capital to get Achane in the 2nd and then Mostert in the 8th?
I do. I would, if you're telling me I could do Achane and Jalen Wright, that makes more sense to me. You're talking about 2 top. Where'd you say Mostert's going?
807.
That's just too much capital. I understand it's a different type of format. Definitely not in the best ball tournament. Yeah. I mean, you're spending 2 top picks on. I know the room is the best room probably in football.
Most of the guys you like spend 8 top picks on wide receivers before they ever get to running back. What would be wrong with taking a
team 6 is off the.
I haven't finished my question yet.
Go ahead, Farrell.
What would be wrong for taking a running back that last year did double-digit touchdowns, and
that was last year.
I'm trying to get the question to her.
fair.
And you would have to imagine that this year he might hit half of that.
Half the touchdowns you're talking about for Mostert?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what would that make him a good pick?
At 807, I mean, if you're getting double-digit touchdowns in the 8th round from a running back, I would say, I mean, it kind of depends. Is he just going to be like
tragic? It's tragic to get double-digit, touchdowns from these players, and
maybe in this format, but
I always think
I don't know what this format. I understand this format, but we're still trying to score fantasy points. How many 8th round draft picks going to score 10 touchdowns?
I think the other thing to keep in mind too is
probably more than you think.
And maybe this is just me, but Mostert, I think, is viewed by drafters as an older running back. Like he's just going to, if he scores all those touchdowns, he's just going to Jerome Bettis him from the 1 yard line
for the last 5 years, and they don't get discounted for age. I've never seen a fantasy player score and have points taken away because.
But this is my point too, Farrell. Is that's not the type of player that he actually is. Mostert. It was a track star, and he's maybe not as fast as he was when he was like 20 or 21, but he's still super fast, and he could still break the big play. I think that there's just this negative connotation that drafters have, or that a lot of drafters have, not everybody. When a player like Mostert gets to the age that he is, they just assume he becomes a plotter and he can only do between the tackle stuff. And I don't think that's the case with Mostert.
That's not him.
I also think that if they're let's talk about this. What if Jalen Wright, let's say Jalen Wright's there, but he was like a day 3 pick, right, Farrell? Day 3, round 4, whatever. Yeah. What if Achane not there? Where does Mostert go in this draft? How high does he go if Achane is not a Dolphin?
Likely 3rd round.
Let's say 3rd round. Shouldn't we be drafting on talent, especially in this format? And if he's talented enough to be a 3rd rounder, I mean, he should be a really good buy in the 8th round. That's just one way to look at it. I'm starting to subscribe to the theory that Farrell has here in regards to Mostert. But I could be wrong. We'll see what happens going forward. Okay, 3rd round. Kyle Pitts, 302 tonight. I think we've talked about him to death, and this is the latest he's gone in these Pros versus Joes lately as he goes to the 302 to Kevin Borg. Mike Evans, Chris Olave after that to Nazarek and man. Josh Allen, the first quarterback off the board to Kramer and Green of the Sports Gambling Podcast. Josh Allen goes at the 312 normally in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament. He goes up to 305 tonight. Santos, as Farrell's alluding to, Jefferson, Harrison, Waddle. The only team to start with 3 straight receivers tonight. We'll see what he does at running back going forward. John Hansen takes Travis Etienne right after that, followed by Evan Ingram at the 308. Isaiah Pacheco. No Seiden Faden Conklin slide for him tonight that we saw in the Champagne draft last night. He goes at the 309. And Lordy, look at all these receivers here, Terminello, Collins, he goes Collins, and then Paulson goes Ayuk. Neighbors goes to Abbott and Verrett, and then they go Samuel, Metcalf, and Kupp. This is 6 straight receivers, Terp, that we're looking at here. Can you believe that those last 3 teams have had 12 picks combined, only 1 running back among them? It's going to be a bloodbath to get people in the backfield.
Makes me so happy.
Why does that make you happy?
Because it makes Mr. Elliott over there so sad. All these running backs.
No, it really doesn't. It really doesn't. That's why
he's just looking for Green.
I zig when everybody else is zagging.
You're the Riz and the Razor. Don't forget.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were saying something.
You were the Riz and the Razor.
We're Riz and the Razor.
Hey, Terp, I got to admit, your popularity is growing here in Kentucky. When last night, when you publicly announced that you were going to be here at least once within the next 10 years.
People are starting to camp it out, waiting for my arrival.
Players are anticipating your arrival. They're actually picking team names for you.
I like it. Make sure the red carpet's ready. I'll give you a heads up a year in advance. My
favorite and probably the natural name for your team, the Terpinator. That's
not happening.
We had a ball player at University of Kentucky. He's gone now. His name Melvin Turpin. That was one of the more entertaining ones. Mel Turpin's love child, because he did play in the East, and I don't agree with that, but I think that's kind of cool.
There is a cowboy named Cavante Turpin.
Cavante. He's probably
fast.
Mel Turpin was pushing 7 feet tall, and Devontae Turner's pushing 5'5".
Just a little different.
I just want to draw you guys' attention to the draft right now, what Ryan Santos is going to do. We have a receiver run of 9 straight receivers. Santos has the opportunity to make it 10 and make it 4 straight receivers for him. He does not. He ends his run of receivers by taking George Kittle at the 407, and those 9 wide receiver run ends at 9, unfortunately. Still fun to look at. I look at Cooper Kupp at the 403 tonight. Trying to find his normal ADP right now. I feel like is that late for Kupp, guys? Yeah, it is. Normally goes up to 310. Yeah. So good value there for Terminello, who drafts a ton of fantasy pros teams and certainly a pro when it comes to doing this. Farrell, we often say that that the pros are a little bit behind the Joes in this format, but I think we need to keep in mind that the Joes were selected based in a lottery of who had registered for the FFPC Main Event, which is a managed league. Sometimes the Joes need to catch up with how best ball works too, right?
Okay, maybe so. Joes
are doing really well tonight.
Who the Joes are? The Joes are
doing really well tonight.
Specifically, which team, Terp, that you like? Out of the gate?
Team 10, Team 12. Really, really good so far.
And, one of the things I'm very careful to do, I guess I just, Turk just spilled the beans that the even numbers are the Joes. But I try to ignore whose team is who because that lets me just look at it a little bit different. But, his history.
I like that mentality because sometimes when you know the guys, it gives you a little bit of bias toward them.
That's
especially
true.
If you know them or you're friends with them or you talk to them a lot.
Yeah.
But tonight, so far, 4, 10, 12 are the ones catching my eyes.
Yeah, well,
4 is Michael Mann, 10 Don Terminello, 12 Rob Abbott, and Mark
Team
Barrett.
6 while we're at it. We talked about the receivers and then Kittle.
Yep.
And going back to Cooper Kupp and what Terp says, when guys lay down their money to get to Las Vegas, they're going to get their guys. I talked to a drafter today at the 301 spot. He took Cooper Kupp. He believes Cooper Kupp's going to have a hell of a year, and that's the only way he was going to get him. So there you go. So I love that aspect about all drafters, that the proverbial phrase, get your guys. Well,
I like that too, because Cooper Kupp's never coming back to him. So if you
exactly.
he's going to be Cooper Kupp a couple years ago, take him.
Terp, today we had some news from Adam Schefter, actually just a couple hours ago, that the Bears have signed DJ Moore to a 4-year, $110 million extension. Almost 83 of that is guaranteed. Now, he already had 2 years left on his deal. The Bears didn't need to do this, but they gave him, not only did they do this deal, but they gave him the largest deal in Bears history. He's going to be a Bear until 2029. Does this security that the Bears have given DJ Moore, does that give you security in how you think Caleb Williams, Matt Eberflus, and all these guys in Chicago are going to be utilizing Moore this year? Do you feel safer taking DJ Moore after this extension today? And conversely, do you have a little misgivings about drafting Keenan Allen and Roma Dunze at their current ADPs?
DJ Moore's my favorite Bears receiver by a good margin. This before the contract, after the contract really doesn't change much. The thing that worries me about Chicago, I've said multiple times, the coaching staff, I just don't love it. Caleb Williams, I think, is going to struggle a little bit. I think he definitely has the talent to be a very, very good NFL quarterback, but all rookies are going to come in there, they're going to struggle. Nobody's been perfect out of the gate. So
except Richardson.
Who?
Except Richardson.
Richardson to be perfect out of the gate.
He played 4 games last year, and now he's perfect. He's the 6th quarterback off the board. I agree with you.
He's the ultimate risk. But anyway, back to Williams. He's going to, Chicago's a tough football town. He's playing a lot of good teams in that division. Detroit, Packers. We're talking about 2 of the favorites in the NFC. So we'll see. The jury's still out on Caleb Williams for me, but DJ Moore, I'm very, very high on, especially where he's going. I feel like he's not being talked about enough. We saw last year with pretty much, Justin Fields when he played and then a bunch of no names. DJ Moore was still a very good fantasy player. So he's had a tough road over his career with some quarterback play, but if Caleb Williams can just figure it out early, DJ Moore could be a steal where he's going right now.
They're very happy with their receiver core in Chicago.
If I'm Caleb Williams, I'm thrilled with the receiving core. You're never going to find, never, ever, ever have you seen this good of a receiving core for a rookie quarterback. Never.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Right.
Farrell, the DJ Moore thing here. What's the proper way to handle this in fantasy? Should we be bumping him up in drafts? Should we be maybe not being as eager to take Allen and Odunze maybe not Odunze, but Allen as we were before? Does this change anything for you on how you're drafting Bears wideouts?
No, just because the contract doesn't have a thing to do with our fantasy football world. You'll find a subset of negative thinkers in the football world that say once a player gets paid that he eases up somewhat. I don't think DJ Moore is going to do that. So you can be satisfactory about drafting that player. Balky, have you ran through the fourth round yet?
I have not. Would you like me to take a spin through it right now?
Yeah, because there's a couple of fascinating moves going on here at the wide receiver position.
This was the end of the big receiver run that we saw. Abbott and Verrett take Deebo Samuel at the 401, DK Metcalf to John Paulson after that, Cooper Kupp to Terminello, Devonta Smith to Doug Orth at the 404, Zay Flowers after that to David Coleman, and then Michael Pittman to John Hansen. George Kittle, the 8th tight end off the board, the first one drafted by Ryan Santos here. Josh Jacobs right after that, joining Breece Hall in the Sports Gambling Podcast backfield. DJ Moore at the 409 to Michael Mann. Amari Cooper to the Fantasy Football Mastermind himself. Michael Nazarek takes him as his number 3 receiver. We'll finish it up with James Cook, running back 13 tonight. Kevin Borg has him and Kyron Williams now. And then Joe Mixon joining Howard Bender's squad. Christian McCaffrey at the 101, Mixon at the 412. Those are his top 2 running backs here. But, Farrell, the receivers are what stood out to you here.
Well, I beat the drum often for Michael Pittman, and he was in the 3rd round earlier of most of the drafts. So I don't know what Darren has on him now, Balky. But here's a player in front of Pittman. We have Kupp, Smith, and Flowers, and Pittman will catch more passes than all those guys. If Kupp returns to form, they would be a dead heat. But I don't understand the excitement for the Richardson potential and then the continuous slide by Pittman. When we get back to Planet Hollywood, he'll be in the 7th or 8th round. How fascinating it's going to be. Just true. Like last year.
Just like last year, yeah. Time is a flat circle, for sure. Yeah. So I think the thing in regards to Richardson and why Pittman's value doesn't necessarily match up with Richardson, I think a lot of people believe that part of the reason you draft Richardson, not only what he can do with his arm, but how talented he is with his legs and how big and strong he is, and being able to not only run the football, but successfully run the football, take a pounding. I know he didn't last year. He had that shoulder injury. But I wonder if it's a little bit different. Like, this isn't like Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes. This isn't like trying to think of another good example here. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. Like, I think you draft a player like Richardson in part or a large part because of the running element, which could negatively affect, but definitely should not have an effect on Michael Pittman. I'm with you that I think Pittman catches more passes than the 3 receivers drafted before him. And so I get it. At the same time, I understand the flip side of it too, why people think that maybe there's capped upside with Pittman.
Well, I love Flowers. I absolutely love the player. 75, Terp asked me last night when I said, take a steady Eddie like Jacoby Myers. And Terp said, what are you going to get out of Jacoby Myers? I said, 75 catches and 8 touchdowns, which is what I think you're going to get out of Flowers. Pittman, definitely not with the touchdowns, with the catches, should be around that in week 12. The thing about Richardson, when he is not running the ball, he is in the pocket. He hangs in the pocket. He's big and he's strong, and he delivers the ball. And that will give Pittman all the time. I talked the other night a little bit about the timing patterns and how that's not that quarterback's forte, and how that might affect Josh Downs. And some people were disappointed in that commentary. And I'll step that back and say that they'll find a way to make Josh Downs a factor in this offense. But this guy is a hang in the pocket, throw the ball long, right down the middle of the field. It's going to be pretty exciting for all these receivers, but I really like Pittman this year.
And it's crazy to think about how late he was going last year, and then when people were drafting early this year, how early they took him. And now, Farrell, you're right. I think he's slipping again. The Mojo has him at 408 right now,
Wow.
which is 406 tonight is not very far off in regards to Pittman on that. So we get it. Now, moving forward here, going back to the YouTube chat, Sean Green, who drafted on Sunday night in this competition, he says he really likes Team 4 with the upside there. I think you guys both commented on that squad that you like it. I think it's strong as well. Robinson, Achane, and then Olave, DJ Moore, and then Jalen Hurts. We'll see what he does at tight end there, Michael Mann from that spot. But there are plenty of tight ends left that he can still go ahead and grab. Michael Kenzel, I like John Hansen's Christian Kirk pick at 507. Kirk could be a high-end wide receiver 2 this year. Terp, how do you feel about Christian Kirk this year? And I know there's a lot of people excited about the Jaguars offense, specifically the Jaguars passing offense.
Love the Jaguars passing offense this year. Love Christian Kirk. Love Brian Thomas. Evan Ingram is one of my highest owned tight ends. I think Trevor Lawrence bounced back. I think he's a great pick in best ball. I think that we all know Doug Peterson likes to throw the ball. Last year, a lot of fluky stuff happened in Jacksonville. And I expect him to, rebound. Obviously, ETN's a beast, but, I expect Kirk to – he's just kind of being ignored in drafts right now. He's not like the sexiest pick. He's not the Zay Flowers or the Michael Pittmans or the, flashier Malik Neighbors type of picks. He is a guy that we saw a couple of years ago when he got paid. People laughed at that, and he put up numbers. I expect him to put up very similar numbers this year. I think that offense takes – a big step forward after last year's kind of disaster and disappointment. And I think Christian Kirk is going to be a guy that, people sleep on this year in drafts.
What do you make, Farrell, of ETN and Kirk on the same team for John Hansen? Oftentimes we talk about stacking the quarterback and a tight end, a quarterback and a receiver. What about a running back and a receiver? Does it affect – do you stay away from that type of strategy when you're drafting best ball?
No, I love the stack. And I don't draft as much best ball as some of the other guys do, but the stack has served me well when I've done that. And that stack, there's such variance in the value of the Jacksonville players through the draft, but you have to pay for Kirk, you have to pay for the tight end, you don't have to pay much for the quarterback. I think we talked about the teams that have within the first 50 players with the first 50 fantasy picks, teams that have 3 players in that group are teams that we expect great things of. And Terps hit the nail on the head. The Jacksonville's going to throw the ball around, and it's time for Trevor Lawrence to step it up a bit. This could be the year.
100%.
Doug Orth is watching on YouTube. He's going to join us here, I want to say, in about a half hour, 40 minutes or so. He'll pop on the broadcast and talk about his team. But he talked about Diggs being a pleasant surprise at 509. Sean Green saying he thinks that's the lowest he's gone in Pros versus Joes this year. Wide receiver 29 tonight at the 509. Diggs normally has an ADP in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament of 412. So you're talking about what, 3/4 of a round, 2/3 of a round here. Farrell, we've talked about the Texans receivers to death. Is this a harbinger of things to come? Are people pumping up guys like Tank Dell? Are people pumping up guys like Nico Collins, where Diggs becomes a value in the 5th round?
Yeah, maybe so. We're going to get to see him Thursday night, although I don't know how many starters will play. But we'll get an idea that this is a team that is ready to explode in a division that necessarily does not figure out a way to stop them. So their common opponents, they should be quite good offensively this year. And there's ways to argue that certain players on that offense are not successful because of there's not enough balls to go around in the air, but the quarterback does a good job through the progressions. And that's what you want to look as a guy that keeps everybody involved. And that should be a way to keep everybody happy with the exception of Diggs.
Yeah, somebody was on the broadcast, was that last night or 2 nights ago, it's saying that Diggs, I think it was Coop, right, was talking about Diggs he'll cry his eyes out if he doesn't
Correct.
if he doesn't get the ball enough in Houston. So there's something to be said for that. There's a lot of table talk going on in the YouTube chat right now, and I don't necessarily want to bring it up. I want to talk about the players that have been picked already, because we'll get around to some of these other players that that have already been picked. That's what I want to focus on. So if you want to chime in the YouTube chat, we love it. But let's try to keep it to players that have already been picked, because there's interesting teams forming here. What do you make, Terp, about this Team 12? You talked about how much you liked it before, Abbott and Verrett. They have 4 receivers, but they also have 2 tight ends. That is a lot of action in the passing offense here. Trey McBride and now Brock Bowers joining that squad at the 601. What do you make of Team 12 right now?
Love it. I mean, there's not really any downside to the team. I know, we don't see any running backs left, but there's still so many on the board. I mean, so many on the board that you're going to be fine at the position. This is a well-drafted team. I have no downside. I'm not the biggest Tank Dell guy anymore, but in best ball as your wide receiver 4, that's no problems there. Okay. Debo, Malik Neighbors, who I love, McBride and Puka. It all makes sense to try to win the league. Again, if you're not first, you're going to mean nothing. Nobody cares about, 4th place and 6th place and 12th. If it blows up, it blows up. But this is a team that I think could win this league if the running back position pans out. Plenty of quarterbacks on the board. Very, very good draft so far.
Farrell, let's talk about the other team that has, well, there's 2 other teams that have two tight ends through 6 rounds here, and maybe Howard Bender will make it 4 as he's on the clock at the 6-12 right now. But Kevin Borg's team from the 2 spot drafts CeeDee Lamb to kick things off with the receiver. Hollywood Brown is the receiver that they take at the 6-11. But in the meantime, they've added Pitts, they've added Ferguson, Kyron Williams, and James Cook in that backfield as well. Terp's talking about a lot of these running backs that are still available. Are there enough receivers for Kevin Borg to still not only remain competitive, but be a team that has stands a decent threat of winning the whole thing?
Yeah, the receivers are always easy to find. Give me a double-digit receiver, I'll find you 60, 70 catches.
Deontay Johnson and Jaden Reed is how we end the 6th round and begin the 7th round with Howard Bender. Once again, this
very good draft.
If you are not familiar with the FFPC lineup, it is 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, a tight end, 2 flexes in this format. So bear in mind that you only have to start 2 running backs. You only have to start 2 receivers, and this is best ball, so it's optimized scoring, so you won't have to make those decisions. It was so funny. Before best ball took off, I don't know if I told you guys this, we got an email in at the FFPC from a player who was playing best ball and didn't understand how optimized scoring worked. So we explained it to him like, look, after the week, with your best ball team, after the week's done with all the scoring in the NFL, the computer is going to take your optimized lineup, and that's what your score will be that week. And the guy wrote back in an email something to the effect of, LOL, I think I'll trust my start ability before I trust the computers. You might want to rethink that. I think you should go ahead.
Some of the customer service emails that Chris and the rest of you guys get, you could probably frame in a Hall of Fame.
To his credit, this is before best ball had become the megalith that it is right now.
Question: was he like 80 years old? Or
I don't know. I don't know how old he was. I don't. But
there are some people. He's either 80 years old or he's Raheem Mostert. It's one of those 2 guys. But there's just some people that cannot embrace prosperity. And
no, not at all. No matter what. You can explain it to them as best as you can, and they're still going to find a way to just poo-poo on it. And it's just like, come on. It's real simple. You draft a team, and you really don't have to click any buttons. It's why it's the best. I mean, people that don't have time to sit there and go over lineup decisions and pick up.
Hey, get out of here. All right, I'm sorry. Just real quick. I don't mean to interrupt. I had to leave my son's Little League championship tonight. They ended up.
Did you win?
He won 13-9. Go ahead and show the trophy.
Congrats.
Odds maker. There you go. There's his trophy that he got.
Congrats. You earned it.
But there you go.
Amazing.
Yeah. So what? Yeah, there you go. Congratulations. I got to get back to it. Nope. We're done. We're back to the action here.
Let him stay on for the whole show.
No, he's not staying on for the whole show. I will talk with you later. We'll talk all about the game. No, absolutely not. Guys, get out of here. It's bedlam here. I'm sorry. Thank God it took until
bedlam.
It took until the we got a cat in here now. It took until the 6th draft for this Russian.
Off a little bit.
It is the final night.
Wow. Okay. Anyway,
My mom wants to get into the picture and show her walker. I got her a new walker.
absolutely. Bring it in. Bring it in.
This is what she
More the merrier.
We'll do HSFF Hour Pros versus Joe's show and tell tonight.
Family edition.
Terp, you can bring your baby in. It'll be fantastic. Well, she's not really a baby anymore, but you can bring your toddler.
And if I wake her up right now, you're not going to see me.
Yeah, we won't do that. We
Your life expectancy would be crazy.
It's going to go down real quick.
Dom Gazzetti in the chat, who's a longtime viewer of the show. Is that the famous cat that was lost and found? Mm-hmm. It was the famous cat that was lost and found. So yes, awesome. we brought it on tonight. Family night at Balky's. It really was. I got to start locking the door to my office. This is ridiculous. Okay. Moving forward, getting back to the action. Whew. All right. 6th round, we have Deontay Johnson kicking things off. That's where I kind of wanted to put our focus on right away. Farrell, you're talking about a receiver that not the most explosive guy in the world, but he commands a lot of targets. The coach is saying they're building the offense around him. Why are we letting him slip to the 7th round of FFPC drafts right now?
We just haven't seen it. We don't trust it. And the Carolina situation outside of Thielen last year just about burned everyone. And Turb did us a public service by telling us to stay away from Miles Sanders, was it? Look, if it clicks in the preseason, he'll move up. If it doesn't, he presents value, but it's hard to everybody. If we were at a live draft, someone would say, Deontay Johnson, wide receiver.
I mean, I kind of get that, but I think there is a little bit more of excitement's the wrong word. I wouldn't be as embarrassed to say, Deontay Johnson this year.
I love him this year.
He's compared with the right coaching staff. The coach here, when the coach speaks, people in fantasy football should listen because he knows about the passing game. So, yeah.
The 6th round almost complete here. Let's talk about the running backs that Ryan Santos ended up getting here from the 6th slot. He starts off with the 3 receivers, Kittle and then Mahomes. He grabs Connor and Aaron Jones. Terp, what do you make of that? You can talk about, I don't like Connor or I don't like Jones or whatever, but those types of running backs after starting the way that he did, is that the right way to do this?
Yeah, I mean, it's not my 2 guys I would target, but based off, how he started, getting Kittle, getting Mahomes following up, I mean, both those guys, if they could stay healthy, could be very, very good this year. Obviously James Conner, he has been as consistent as they come in the last couple of years. The coaching staff loves him. There's not much behind him. I haven't heard many positive things about Trey Benson. So it seems like it's Connor's show, especially, early in the season. But if the wheels do come off, I mean, it's obviously a risky pick in this format because with Aaron Jones, it's the same issue. I mean, Ty Chandler, to me, is the best handcuff or one of the best handcuffs right now in fantasy football. So if I'm drafting Aaron Jones, back to we talked about earlier with A-Chain and Mostert, if you're getting Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler, it makes a lot more sense because the capital you're spending is not as crazy, and you're getting a team that's going to run the ball a good amount this year with the uncertainty at the quarterback position. So you're getting the best of both worlds and 2 guys that are going to play a lot. Yeah. So I like what he did. Not my favorite 2 players. I would have definitely taken a couple guys that, went after him, but overall it makes sense for how he started.
The structure is something that you can definitely get on board with for sure here. And we are covering a best ball draft here tonight on the Pros versus Joe's FFPC Best Ball Challenge. Don't forget that we have a ton of stuff going on at the FFPC. 2024 Fantasy Pros Championship has drafts filling daily, both slow and live. This is the last weekday giveaway we're doing. So if you register by tomorrow night for the slow or the live draft, as long as that slow starts prior to Friday, you'll be eligible for that weekday giveaway. We're giving away 3 free Fantasy Pros Championship teams on Friday. The FFPC Main Event, another contest where we're offering a $1 million grand prize. Register for that at myffpc.com. We have a live one going off at 9 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. Just a handful of teams left in that one. And then don't forget about our best ball tournament and our Superflex best ball tournament, which you can join for as little as $35. Empire Dynasty, Original Dynasty, startups going off each and every day. myffpc.com is where to go for that. This is the HSFF Hours coverage of the FFPC Pros versus Joe's competition. Farrell, we saw something that you'll like in the 8th round here, or maybe you're saying it's too late. Little running back run here. Jaylen Warren, Raheem Mostert, Zamir White, Najee Harris.
All the teams we talked about.
That would be going. Well, and I'll tell you this too. Like, so we talked about Raheem Mostert here. Zamir White was in the news today, Farrell, about him being sort of the unquestioned starting running back in Las Vegas. For a team like that may struggle offensively this year, and obviously the coach is a defensive coach, he's going to want to run the ball. How much stock do we put into that of saying, okay, it's not the greatest offense in the world, but if he's the number one running back, there's some fantasy value here.
Yes, and he is the declared number one running back, and perhaps Zach Moss would share that with him amongst all these other the running backs here in the 8th round. And why would you assume, Balky, that those Raiders aren't going to move and score that ball, and it's not going to be a really good offense? But I'm not going to hold that against you. We're in this situation where those Moss and White, those are the two players that are the number one running backs. So that's what I keep talking about. You're getting to some shared touches when you're going to your number two guy. And if you're comfortable with that, you're comfortable with that. I would rather have the receivers sharing the pass catching than the running backs sharing the volume of carry. So I want a guy that's going to be a full-time running back this late, or I'm going to take Mostert and put him with my – I found that very interesting in the draft capital, I understand, but I don't see anywhere in the world that Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler produce what's going to be produced by A-Chain and Mostert. It would pale in comparison.
You're right there, probably, but, I mean, there's also the risk that goes involved that A-Chain just takes the job, then you have an 8th-round pick is pretty much wasted. Or if something happens to one of those two, which we both know they both have injury risk, if one of them gets hurt.
I think that head coach out at Miami might be able to remember what happened last year. So solid.
He's a smart guy, very smart guy, but he's also an arrogant guy, and he loves speed.
Yeah, which listen, I'm fine with that for fantasy too.
I mean, it's hard not to love the Miami Dolphins and everything on their team. I mean, it's just you can say you might not be high on a player, like Waddle or possibly Mostert, like we talked about, but all these guys have what you want in fantasy football. They all have game-breaking ability, and they're on a ridiculously good offense.
We talked about that last night with Dan Seidenfaden, too. Like, his kid, huge Dolphins fan. My kid loves watching the Dolphins. My buddy, Troublemaker El Grande, his youngest kid, is a huge Dolphins Tyreek Hill fan. So that's the team that the NFL should be marketing to the younger generation, because who doesn't love speed? And they got plenty of it in Miami. Forgive me if we talked about, or if you guys talked about this already. Team 8, David Coleman, Permar 99, is saying that they're rolling right now. They kicked it off with Amon-Ra St. Brown. They get Jonathan Taylor and Evan Engram, peppering in some receivers here that I know we like. Flowers, Higgins, Rice, Watson, and then Zach Moss at the 805. Farrell, what do you make of that team? David Coleman, the FFPC Joe from the 8 slot tonight.
Permar makes some good observations, and he's done so again. This is a very, very good team. And he took it at value. He didn't reach very far, and he took one of my favorite players to get the draft started. I'm not a big T. Higgins fan, but I believe I should be. Terp, as I explained to us in every broadcast, that Rashee Rice is not going to get suspended, and he's a great value. And you are a Christian Watson man, and so am I. And then there was a question about where the last full-time running back goes. Well, right now, I guess it's Moss. Yeah. I love this team.
Yeah, I'm liking it too. I'm trying to find out. I'm scrolling up in the YouTube chat. Okay, Michael Kenzel. I'll post this right now. He said Thomas could be the best value of all the Jags receivers. Thoughts there. Brian Thomas goes tonight, wide receiver 47 at the 901. If we look at the Mojo for him, he normally goes at the 907. So a little bit of an overdraft, about a half round at this point, doesn't really matter. Howard Bender gets him there. Do you think that he's going to be the best value of any Jags receiver this year, Turk?
Not named Evan Engram? Yes, I do. I mean, I like Christian Kirk, but if you're going to line up Christian Kirk, what was it, 4th round, 5th round versus Brian Thomas, 9th round, I'm going to take Brian Thomas most of the time. He's a rookie, so he's going to, have his lumps early in the season. But, what else? Like, there's no Calvin Ridley anymore, and they're going to throw the ball. I mean, we saw last year they threw the ball a ton. It just some things got a little fluky. And, with Calvin Ridley, and his drops, Christian Kirk getting hurt, Zay Jones getting hurt, ETN stealing a lot of, short touchdowns. a lot of just fluky stuff. And if that turns around even a little bit, I think Brian Thomas could be one of the best picks in fantasy football this year. I mean, if everything works out, you've heard some conflicting reports in camp. He's had, missteps and mistakes so far, but you also heard that about Jamar Chase. And I'm not saying he's Jamar Chase in any way, but he's an extremely talented player from the same school in a great offense, in an offense that will be ascending this year, in my opinion. I love Brian Thomas.
I once remember when I got CeeDee Lamb in the 9th round. What a wonderful year it was.
Rookie receivers are fun to draft, especially if you get them right, because there are just printing money tickets if you can figure it out. It's tough because, every guy that we see doesn't pan out. And there's going to be plenty of these guys that have drafted already, from Neighbors to Dunze to, I don't think Harrison, but, Xavier Worthy, Keon Coleman. 2 or 3 of these guys are going to be very, very average or just totally bust.
And team number 3 came with an old vet that in a change of location that it could be the proverbial fountain of statistical youth for Curtis Samuel. Last night we talked about I talked about it. Once you get into this repetitive drafting of receivers, you can't shake yourself out of it. It's like you want one more. I'd like to hear your assessment, Terp, of Team 9. Bulky, can we go through the 9th round? We're in the 9th round. I mean, not
we're in the 9th round. Yeah,
Team 5. Cortland Sutton there. Yeah,
I mean, we could talk. Do you want
to go through the whole round first?
We don't have to go through the whole round. We could just focus on the Sports Gambling Podcast squad at 5 if you want to talk about Sutton there.
Well, where is it? When is it too much? How does Sutton mix in with that group? Is he necessary there? That's
a good question, Terp, because the SGP guys, Kramer and Green, already had on that squad 5 receivers, 2 running backs, no tight ends, and they take Cortland Sutton there at the 905 as wide receiver 49. I would have gone a different way, but those guys certainly know what they're doing. Terp, how do you feel about it?
I don't mind what they did at all. I think they're doing exactly what they should be doing with the way they started. I mean, you're getting Breece Hall, you're getting Josh Jacobs, 2 very solid running backs. You're getting Josh Allen, the best quarterback, most eyes in fantasy football. Devontae Adams is still going to be a target, monster with the Raiders. And then you're getting 5 guys in a row that all have potential, and you're setting yourself up for the most beautiful stack in fantasy football this year that nobody talks about, and that's the Tennessee Titans with Will Levis. Ridley and Hopkins. I mean, it makes a ton of sense. Cortland Sutton's going to be the number 1 guy on a bad team that should throw the ball enough. Sean Payton had the opportunity to trade him. It seemed like that was a popular rumor in the offseason. And it didn't happen. He's back in camp. He wanted to get paid. He got a little bit of a bump. I like Cortland Sutton. I mean, he's going to score touchdowns. And if he can figure out the rest on a team that, whether it's Stidham, whether it's Knicks to start the season, love the draft so far. I mean,
these guys love to stack, Terp. I wonder if they would have taken Samuel if the other team hadn't got him.
It's probably likely, but, with the start that they had with Josh Allen, I mean, you want to get one of them. You want to get the Keon Coleman. You want to get the, Samuel. You want to get the Shakur, Kincaid if you want to spend that capital. It will be definitely interesting to see which one of those guys pan out. I have my favorites. And have my guys that, I draft more, but I want to get all of them. There's nobody that I'm going to totally fade, because with Josh Allen, even with the new offense with Brady, who doesn't throw the ball a ton, you want to get one of those guys.
And you can keep talking that Will Levis, Terp, and I'll join in there in a duet with you, but we won't move him up the board.
He's not. No matter what we say, he's not moving up the board.
He's not
never
moving
going to
up
be
the
looked
board
at as a QB1, and that's fine. That's I like that. I
love
that stuff.
I just want to draft
Jordan Love last year. It wasn't a QB1. Nobody drafted him to be a QB1, and where did he finish?
Yeah, nice.
Guys, I just flashed it up on the screen. I know Farrell likes Curtis Samuel, but Terp, I don't know if you've talked a whole lot about him. Christopher Davis saying that it sounds like the Bills want to use Curtis Samuel all over the place. Could he be a huge steal tonight? He goes at the 903 at the wide receiver 48. He's not a young guy anymore, and certainly he has disappointed us before, but it's an interesting opportunity that he has in Buffalo right now, Dave.
The opportunity is elite. He's my favorite Bills receiver if I had a pick. It's really hard not to like him, what he brings to the table, his versatility. in that offense. I mean, he's a guy that in the 9th round as your wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 in some builds. I don't see a downside there. I think it's a very, very, very good pick. Is it a high ceiling pick? Can he get up there in the wide receiver 1-2 range? No, I don't think so. But you don't really need that in certain builds. So to me, Curtis Samuel makes a ton of sense. My favorite Bills receiver. And if they start throwing the ball just a little bit more, I think he's going to be the guy that they move around, slot, backfield. Just get him the ball as much as possible. And he's definitely going to pay off where he's being drafted.
Can I have a number of receptions on Curtis Samuel, Mr. Terp?
You know how I love it. You know I hate these questions.
There just says 41 behind you. That's a number, but that you want to go over that. Can you give me?
I got a number once Terp's done.
78.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say 67.
He was 67 down in Washington with that Duke's mixture of quarterbacks they had here.
I also don't trust the health all 17 games too. That's the other thing.
That's also a big risk. I mean, we've seen that over his career.
I'm naturally going to go for over your numbers, and I'm going to end up at 89 catches.
Oh man, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it.
If you told me he had 89 catches, he'd be every single team that I had.
There you go. I just told you.
He did play. So last year he played 16 games. This is Washington. 16 games, 62 catches. I didn't realize this. He has only missed. Well, I'm not going to say that because that's not accurate. But he played 16 games in 2023, caught 62 balls. 2022, he played 17 games, caught 64 balls. Now, you throw out 2021 because he only played 5 games that year. But before that, 15, 16, and 13 games played. He did have a 77-catch season in 2020 with the Carolina Panthers. Yeah, maybe I got to revisit 67. Maybe he's more like 74, 75 this year with Buffalo. I just know how much they want to run the ball, and I know that's the sexy thing to say every quarter. Well, we're going to run the ball. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. But I know that Curtis Samuel is going to be involved in that Bills offense. And I'll tell you, too, and Farrell, feel free to disagree with me. A rookie receiver, we talked about how much fun it is to draft rookie receivers before, but, man, sometimes they are really hit and miss, and then it's not fun if they don't hit. Hashtag Quentin Johnston, players like that, right? And Keon Coleman, the opportunity is there. Is he going to be able to take advantage of it with Dalton Kincaid, with Curtis Samuel, with how much they want to run the ball? I'm not sold on Keon Coleman at least year 1 in Buffalo.
I love it when guys draft rookies, wide receivers, and then the rookies have a hard time getting started, and then they get dropped, and then I can go pick them up. So I would rather pick them up than draft them sometimes. But I think you have to have patience with that, and I think Coleman is a perfect example of a player that will typically play better at the end of the season. He's get those crazy weather issues that they have up there. But there's certain of these players that will play better at the end of the season. Curtis Samuel will catch 89 passes because he'll do it quietly over a 17-game schedule and be impressive about it. That's 5-6 catches a game, and he'll be good for that all year long.
Guys are coming up on the halfway point of the draft. I do want to bring it back to Ryan Kramer and Sean Green's squad from the 5 spot. We talked about how we didn't necessarily know if Sutton would fit into that team, given that they didn't have a tight end on their squad yet as their number 6 receiver. Then it comes back to him in the 10th round, and players like Cole Kmet, Dalton Schultz are out there. They let both of those guys go in favor of Austin Eckler, and then Kmet and Schultz go right after that. There's still Sands tight end. Terp, I know Eckler's has a cult following, and it certainly seems like that following is growing, given how late he's going in drafts right now. You didn't have a problem with the Sutton pick. Did you have a problem with the Eckler pick and not grabbing a tight end there?
Not the biggest Eckler fan. Don't have a problem with the pick. I mean, does Cole Kmet really excite you as your, part of your tight end group?
No, but you do need to put somebody there. So you're of the opinion that they'll
Dalton
be able to
Schultz.
He just can't get behind
Andrew Cooper last night. You listen to what he said. Neither of those two guys are to me. If you're filling your room, you talk about guys like Hunter Henry, guys like that. That to me, Tyler Conklin, if he would have made it, would have made some sense because there's a possibility that he's a second target on that team. But
hold on,
if I'm going to wait on tight end, I'll take 4 and just figure it out.
Our tight end whisperer was very positive about Hunter Henry last night.
He drafted him.
His strategy makes so much sense if you actually listen to it and study it. I mean, he's right up there. Him and Dan Williamson are two guys. If you're talking tight ends, they're the two guys you talk to because, they'll give you the basic, strategy dumbed down. They're not going to try to overcomplicate things and make you really realize that some of these guys make a ton of sense in fantasy football year in and year out.
Mm-hmm. And they do a numerical study. What I understand they do. It's a very good numerical presentation of what the possibilities are given X amount of passes by a quarterback on a team and who's going to catch the ball. And it's very, very logical. Sometimes I think it may move away from the athletic skill set of the players that are involved. If anybody's watched Hunter Henry move, that question, Terp, that little trick question they threw at you last night about tight end screens, you got to be athletic to be in a tight end screen. You got to play with linemen.
You got to have some juice in your legs, and Hunter Henry's not a guy that would ever.
Hunter Henry's not.
He's not.
And I'm not saying that Dalton. I'm just saying that Dalton Schultz for me is a wonderful tight end number 2. Which is we have team number 3 here that's picked him up. I like him better than Goddard, and they have Goddard as well 4 rounds earlier.
The sports gambling podcast guys end up going with Gus Edwards here. It seems like every single time I think they're going to go with a tight end, they don't. So I'm
missed a good one, Balky.
I'm going to stop talking about it because they clearly have a plan. They're going to execute it right now. And
Musgrave would have made some sense over.
He would have, and we can talk with them about it because joining us on the program right now, live from the Sports Gambling Podcast headquarters is indeed Ryan Kramer and Sean Green. If there is a way for you guys to turn off the sound of my voice at all, that would be good.
I love the echo of it
because we're getting a nice echo.
Hold on.
It is.
It's very, very cool.
Hold on. I'm gonna see if I can display you guys better here too because this is that's not great either. I'm trying to find a way to. Okay, I apologize for this. We're just going to do this until...
No, you're good. You're good. We're live. That's why the voice is
beautiful.
Got it. Yeah, we got you.
Also do... Oh, you got it? You got us? Okay.
Yeah, we got you. So let's talk about this team that you guys have been formulating through the 5-hole. I'm going to ask the first question because I want to know. No tight end on this team through 11 rounds. You've had the opportunity to do it. You've loaded up on receiver. Take us through the process of how we've gotten here.
Are tight ends important in FFPC? this first time, a long time. No, I think we're going to take 4 of them. Stay tuned. It just hasn't come up yet. I mean, honestly, once you miss out on the top tier, it does get kind of gross and it feels like forced a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
I love it. Let's go for the 3rd tier and get. But I'm writing down because we can't talk about them. You can't tease them. I'm writing down all the tight ends you're going to pick because I know who they are.
You're probably right. I mean, for Kramer and I think it was, hey, we didn't, get Kelsey, Laporta, Kincaid, McBride. There was kind of that run there in the 2nd and 3rd round. And then so we said, screw it. We're just going to wait on tight end with the idea of, hey, we're going to have 4 tight end bullets late. I mean, you're getting, starting quality tight ends. I'm super high on a couple of these guys down the list. I won't announce who.
No, don't do that.
But I think there's still some. You compare him to like a Dalton Schultz, Tyler Conklin. I do like Luke Musgrave. We were debating drafting him there, but I think you can get similar production with some of these guys later down the list as like that 2nd tier. So
don't oversell it. They'll start drafting the 3rd tight end.
You can't pass up Gus Edwards in the 11th round. Come on.
There you go.
That's like 12 touchdowns right there.
Greg Roman, they're going to pound the rock. Gus Bus, as long as it stays on the road, optimistic that this Chargers offense will be better, I think, than people imagine. So optimistic on Gus.
Ryan, what about all the receivers you took from round 5 through round 9? When you and Sean were talking about this prior to the draft, is this something you had talked about? Like, okay, well, this is kind of what we're thinking from the 5 spot. We're kind of thinking that we might get a good chance we'll get a running back here. Maybe we need to pound these receivers, and after the first few rounds are over.
I think it was part of why we went. Well, in my mind, it was part of why we went Breece Hall instead of Justin Jefferson in the 5 pick. Knowing that we were going to be high on the Titans guys and probably take them around early, and just knowing that there's a bunch of guys who are probably number 1s on their team. We got lucky. We rolled the full gambit, getting Pickens all the way down to Sutton there, but Yeah, I don't know that with Josh Jacobs making it back to us in the fourth, it kind of changed things a little bit, and yeah, it worked out really nicely to get those 5 receivers like that.
And you guys, I'm trying to find this right now, but I'll look it up in a second. In the meantime, the first quarterback off the board, 305, was Josh Allen to you. And I know you got Keon Coleman as the stack later on. I missed that when I was talking about the Coleman pick. But Allen is the first quarterback off the board. Is that something that you guys wanted to do? Did you want to make sure you got an elite tight end? Because you got the elite of the elite. You could add any quarterback, you went with Allen.
Yeah, I think in these, especially, yeah, I mean, yes. The short answer is yes. I thought maybe the Kincaid guy would draft him. We knew we wanted one of the top quarterbacks. It does make these types of leagues a little easier, and we get to save a position on a quarterback and then send it down to our 4 tight end room. So
yeah,
So,
I think the plan was, hey, we got an elite quarterback with Josh Allen. We can wait. We have like a couple second quarterbacks we like. We don't need to use that third quarterback, and we can concentrate the stacks. We won, of course, last year with an elite quarterback, Jalen Hurts, and figure run it back this year.
I don't see any Eagles yet on your team, though.
Oh, yeah.
I know. I keep
Just
trying
remember
to
your
tell
20th
Kramer.
round draft pick. We talked about this earlier.
The Ridley and Hopkins thing is interesting. Does that mean we know who the second quarterback is going to be on your roster, Sean?
You guys are pretty sharp. You could take an educated guess.
And it's cheap too, which is what's so great about it, for sure. So as we're 11 rounds in, Ryan, do you have a favorite pick of your top 11 picks so far? One that you're like pumping the fist that you were really happy that you got?
I wanted Calvin Ridley. That was probably the one that got me the most excited. I would have loved to get Malik Neighbors. He didn't make it back to us in the fourth, but yeah. So Calvin Ridley's the guy, very, very high. I mean, you're talking to a holder of a Will Levis to have the most passing yards in the NFL this year. So very excited about this Titans offense.
Sean, what was the most contentious pick between you guys tonight?
That's tough. I would say, yeah, I don't know, Kramer. Which one was the one we disagreed on the most?
We haven't really disagreed.
They're
maybe
forthcoming. They're
coming those
with
tight
the
end picks later.
I
Yeah.
mean, I would have liked to get some Eagles on the board, but again, like it kind of didn't work out. I was fine with going elite quarterback early with Josh Allen. I think he's going to have a huge year rushing wise, and and then after that is kind of pairing his partner. I think I'm a little higher on Cortland Sutton maybe than Kramer is. I just like that to have a number one receiver in that Sean Payton offense. I think he's going to have a Michael Thomas-esque role where they're going to give Bo Nix a bunch of easy throws to Cortland Sutton in full point PPR. I think he could be a real steal in the 9th round. So that's probably my favorite pick considering where we got him.
I haven't seen an easy throw in Denver in 2 seasons, so it'll be worthwhile seeing. But you're right. It could be that way. Yes, sir.
Sean, Ryan was on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show with me a few weeks back, and I'd like to hear it from your perspective. I think the story of how the Sports Gambling Podcast got started is interesting, but the way it's taken off is really entertaining. What can you share with the viewers tonight that they don't know? Because I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people ask us like, "Hey, what was your plan?" Honestly, we had no plan when we started. Just 2 guys, the classic 2 guys in a garage, instead of, Steve Jobs or Bill Gates making computer software. It was just us talking about things we wanted to bet on, and then we were obviously one of the first podcasts talking about sports gambling. Thus, the name Sports Gambling Podcast just showed up early and often. I think, for us, a nice boost came actually during the pandemic where the thing was, oh, hey, sports are gone. Everyone's totally screwed. What are we going to do? We pivoted. We started simulating Madden games. We got an offshore sports book to offer odds on that. And so we did play-by-play, which was like a nice savior there in the pandemic. And then, just continue to add shows. I think people understand our fun approach to it, but fun approach to it, but still, obviously, we know our stuff, especially when we're talking National Football League. So, continue to just kind of keep building one step at a time and enjoying all the growth. And we got a bunch of great guys working for us.
It's amazing. Everything that you guys talk about on that program. It's really fascinating stuff. Not just football. It's everything. And when I say everything, I do mean everything. That you guys,
Yes.
if there's, especially at the Olympics going on, God, you guys just must be in heaven right now.
With that, and we're covering the Premier Lacrosse League. Got an episode dropping Thursday for
lacrosse has been a nice little thing here in the summers to break it up. But yeah, I mean, if there's a line, our listeners want to hear about it. So if it's not us on the main podcast, we got a side podcast on the network talking about it. So if you're betting on it, we got content for it.
Follow it on the X at Gambling Podcast. Ryan is at Kramer Centric. Sean is at Sean T Green. And I guess I could plug anywhere you get podcasts, right? Is the best way to go and download it, watch it, stream it. That's the way to go, right?
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys. We're on the clock. We got to dominate.
All right.
Now.
All right. I'll let you guys go. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Holy cow. What a fun time. What a fun time it was talking with those guys. I'll bring the draft board back. Sorry, Paul Teixeira. My fault on that. And there it is. The Jacoby Myers pick has been made by Ryan Santos here at the 1207 wide receiver 59.
Way to go, Ryan.
Ship it. 75 catches, 8 touchdowns in the 12th round, according to Farrell Elliott, which could
still didn't take a tight end.
No, that's why would they?
Why would they?
There's 8 more. They only need 4, and they have 8 picks to play with. It's way too early for a tight end.
They're right where they want to be.
So Zach Charbonnet is the pick by Green and Kramer here as they go 3 straight running backs, building up that. We're going to talk about that too. The running back room actually needs to be built up a little bit with Eckler as the 3, Edwards as the 4, Charbonnet. But I mean, I think that it's weird to say like, oh, they're okay at running back, even though they waited till the 10th round to take their 3rd and the 11th round to take their 4th. But if things pan out for Edwards and the way that Eckler's looking, I guess that could work out, right, sir?
Ton of potential. I mean, Eckler and Edwards aren't the sexiest picks in the world, but when you have Jacobs and you have Breece Hall, it makes a ton of sense. I mean, you're running back 2 on a structure like this. I mean, that's where you're questioning. You're betting a lot on Breece Hall. So with the 6 receivers,
remember that stat line from Week 1 last year, Los Angeles Chargers, Austin Eckler.
I can't tell
Week 1 stat line. Help us out, Balky. Can you?
I'm looking it up right now.
My point is this, and you're right. It was a difficult thing to watch last year. You had this elite player who had a great Week 1. He was injured. He disappeared for 4 or 5 weeks. He came back and was a shell of himself, although he still put up numbers and made a hell of an effort trying to do the things that he's always done. Now he's got a change of scenery. I know he's got a shared backfield situation, but his scoring throughout his career has always come through a shared backfield situation.
I think banking on Jaden Daniels to throw the ball to running backs, and we don't know that's going to happen yet.
Yeah, but you don't know that's not going to happen, and you assume that Eckler is a drop off. It'd be the Najee Harris receiver in the backfield. That's not what he is. He gets downfield. He runs routes. I think you're missing on Eckler and Terp. I don't want you to miss on a fine running back in the 10th round because, by God, that's when you're going to be drafting them.
And that's the important thing to point out about Eckler too. You guys are right. It is nebulous. Is Daniels going to throw to Eckler enough? Is he not going to throw to Eckler enough? But it is a 10th round pick, which neuters that point a little bit. Week 1 last year, Chargers, Dolphins, Austin Eckler, 16 carries, 117 yards, 1 touchdown. 5 targets. He catches 4 of them for 47 yards, 26.4 FFPC points. However, that was his only 100-yard game of 2023. And he also got hurt that game.
So, it was there. And I think it's some semblance of that will be there then. So, Terp, there's your round 10 running back.
I'll pass.
So just to be clear, everybody does have a tight end except for the SGP coming.
They're taking one here, I believe. They should take Will Levis.
Last 5 rounds. So
I know who it is.
This should be Will Levis, but
no, Levis now. Crazy. 17th round. Quit trying to push Levis up.
I think I don't think you can wait till the 17th, but I think I don't know actually. Based on his ADP, if they want him, they might have to take him here. Because I don't know if he makes it back to him.
He's going to be the pick here, I believe.
Ryan Kramer and Sean.
Willie
Green.
Hollywood knows who it is.
Bill Hollywood. Yeah, everybody says they know who it is, but nobody's saying who it's going to be.
I wrote it down.
You did?
Will Levis.
Is it a tight end, Farrell?
Yes.
Going to be a tight end here with 45 seconds on the clock.
Will Levis, or I'm not going to say his name.
There it is. There it is. Will Levis at quarterback 21.
They overpaid.
There's no such thing as overpaying when you have both receivers.
Yes, there is.
If you let Will Levis
I'm glad
go,
this is our last show of the year because I don't want to start believing any of this stuff you say, including that.
You have to. It's the 15th round. What is it? 13th round.
13th round.
You have to take
13th.
him.
That's the curly thing is a 3. This is the 13th
My eyes are
round.
bad. I'm getting old. I just turned 40 this year. My eyes are getting a little,
Where is the board, Turf?
Kevin Borg right here. J.K. Dobbins, Kamani Vidal back-to-back picks with 2/3 of the Chargers backfield. The one missing is Gus Edwards with the Sports Gambling Podcast guys taking him at the 11:05. But you look at Kevin Borg's team, Kyron Williams and James Cook. He waits to take his third and fourth running backs until rounds 12 and 13. Farrell, what do you make of that strategy where your running back room, I don't want to say it's desolate, but it's definitely sparse. And then you go back-to-back with 2 running backs who are basically, 2/3 of a backfield. How do you feel about that strategy?
Where are we, Balky? What team are you
Team 2.
This is Team 2, 12-13. Dobbins and Vidal from the Chargers after only having Williams and Cook in his backfield prior to that.
Well, oddly enough, I like the players that they've stacked up. I wouldn't have drafted some of them, but I like them. The team seems to make sense. Vidal was the darling of May and June. What, is he falling off the board?
He still is. I mean, he's getting a lot of press in camp right now. I mean,
I don't know. I like that Lockett and Shakir, especially in this format. And I'm not going to pick apart this team. It's unusual in its design, but when you get all the parts together, these are mighty fine players. And Kyron Williams, it's the next to last pick of the second round. I think we can get with this team.
I'm going to bring our next guest on here in about 30 seconds. If you are watching this for the first time, this is the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. It's a show that normally airs on the FFPC YouTube and socials, 10 p.m. Eastern every Friday night. We go year round. It's myself and Farrell Elliott. Dave Terpoli occasionally makes guest appearances on that show as well. You can follow it or watch it live on YouTube, X, and Facebook every Friday night at 10 p.m., as well as anywhere you get podcasts as well at HSFFR on the X. Let's bring in our next guest tonight, guys. He is a former finisher in the top 10 of this competition just a few short years ago. You follow all his work at Fantasy Football Today, and of course, you follow him on the X at Doug Orth. That's DOUGORTH. He's drafting tonight from the 9 spot. Please welcome aboard Mr. Doug Orth. Doug, number 1, how are you? Number 2, how's the team looking here? 13 picks in.
Gentlemen, good to see you. Could not be happier. I know you have a lot of people that say, love my team, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled. I'm absolutely thrilled with how it's developed. I will say, if I have one complaint, it's that a few of the running backs I think in the 10th round that I was hoping were going to fall to me didn't. But that's the price you pay for, scooping up value, in 2 of the 3 rounds prior to that. So other than that, not big.
Okay, so Doug, it's interesting because you say you love your team, and it sounds like it might have even turned out better than what you had thought going in. Is that the case?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, I had the plan developed. I mean, I had a rough outline of how I wanted this to go, and then the 5-6, I wasn't expecting Diggs to make it to me. I was going to pray that Richardson would fall back in my lap in the 6th round, and that happened. Again, I don't mind taking upside shots at running back. This is a complete 180 for me from what it was 5 years ago. I was always running back heavy. Now I'm going to take upside, especially in best ball. I'm going to take upside shots at running back and hope for the best.
And your Najee Harris pick, best available there, or a player you're actually targeting and really like?
Probably 70% best available, 30% targeting. I am a little bit higher than the field. I can only imagine. I don't pay that much attention to ADP, but
Yeah.
I do believe he's going to be the main back in Pittsburgh. I do believe he's in line for 250 touches. And again, with the way that the team is built, I'm more than happy to have 250 touches for my RB2.
Okay.
Doug Orth joining us on consignment from Fantasy Football Today right now. He's going to be on the clock here shortly. Just to recap of what his team looks like. The quarterbacks, and this is through 13 rounds, viewers, Anthony Richardson and Jaden Daniels are the quarterbacks. In the backfield, it's led by Isaiah Pacheco, Najee Harris. Brian Robinson is on this team as well. Jerome Ford and Blake Corum also joining those guys. So 5 running backs on this team. The receivers are Garrett Wilson, Devonta Smith, Stephon Diggs, and Demario Douglas. And he's got Travis Kelce and Pat Freiermuth. Doug, you're now on the clock at the 14:04. Is this a time to add to that wide receiver room?
I believe I'm thinking between 2 guys here, 1 receiver, 1 running back. I think I'm going to make Farrell happy. I know I've heard him talk about. I've heard him talk about Jahan Dawson.
You're supposed to come on here and make me happy, not
Bergen, you've never been happy, Terp. Let the man make his pick.
That's what I was thinking with the Devontae Smith pick, and I wanted to talk about that.
I was very happy.
What's that?
I was very happy with that selection.
Love the Smith pick, Doug. For sure.
Thank you. And I just want to talk about that real quickly. Just talk about that real quickly. I don't think there's going to be a primary slot in Kellen Moore's offense there in Philadelphia, but I think Smith's going to get more of the slot snaps than everybody else. We know the history with Kellen Moore's offense going back to Randall Cobb in Dallas probably about 5 years ago. You got Cobb, you got CeeDee Lamb, you got Keenan Allen last year. I'm not saying that Smith is Lamb, and I'm not saying he's Allen. But if I'm playing a hunch, and if I'm right about this, I think he's going to push AJ Brown. I didn't say he's going to overtake AJ Brown in terms of fantasy value, but I think he's. I'm just very pleased with the potential, and we saw his upside here 2 years ago. His downside is wide receiver 16 in a broken offense. The year before that, he was wide receiver 9. So I'm pretty happy with that as my.
I don't think he's talked about enough in drafts right now. I feel like, just because people are scared of obviously AJ Brown being above him, I mean, what you said is pretty much spot on. He could be the slot if he plays predominantly in the slot or more in the slot than he used to. Because Kellen Moore is going to move guys around. It's not just going to be a stagnant offense that it's been.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at some guys right now that are being drafted that are kind of not being talked about at all. He's definitely one of them, and I don't really understand it. I know people are fearful of AJ Brown, but there's plenty of opportunity to go around that offense. And if he plays more slot than AJ Brown, which I'm probably on the other side, I think AJ Brown's going to get moved around. But I love both players, non-homer, and I think Smith should be going higher than he is.
When you can get Douglas and Dotson in this late.
Yeah,
we're talking about Eagles. We're talking about Eagles here.
You've exhausted the subject. You have exhausted the Eagles subject.
Tell me something about Pop Douglas that excites you.
Wow.
There's no further Eagles to discuss.
Can you tell me something about Pop Douglas that excites you?
Well,
yes, he'd be the number 1 receiver. Here we're talking about the 13th and 14th round. This is why you can go earlier with your running backs, because these guys are around down there.
Oh, here we go again.
Yeah. All right. Now, but I have a quarterback question.
Yes.
You already had your high risk, high reward guy in Richardson.
Yes.
Would you, and the way it's going, you could have had Jordan Love if you hadn't have the team before you picked him. So my question is about the guys that are bracketing Daniels here. Daniels, the same type of risk reward perhaps, but to your right, the team taps Brock Purdy with all those wonderful tools, and wouldn't that have been a nice balancer against Richardson, or you just really want to have that high risk at the quarterback?
Yeah, I played the floor ceiling game last year with I believe it was Kirk Cousins, Anthony Richardson, and both of them were hurt by week 8.
There you go.
So I hate to get into all the trendy phrases in the fantasy industry but I think there's 2 quarterbacks. I think there's 2 quarterbacks outside of, say, the top, the Allen and Hurts that could break fantasy, and I think I feel like I got both of them.
You drafted both of them. That's correct.
Shame you can't get Will Levis. Kurt ran him up the road. Kurt ran him up the damn board.
Yeah, that'll happen.
I am a fan of Will Levis. I think that's a 600 pass attempt offense this year.
I mean, everything that they have done in the offseason is basically telling us that, look, we may not be the greatest team in the world, but we will die throwing the ball this year.
That's right.
That's what
Let's go. Throw that ball.
Jerome Ford at the 11:09 tonight, Doug. That pick right there could prove very interesting if Nick Chubb remains on the PUP list and does not start the season ready to go. And quite frankly, the way things are trending, he's already behind what everybody else is doing. So when he does come back healthy enough to play, he still will be missing out on a lot of the training camp stuff that current players are going through right now. Jerome Ford is very, very interesting at running back 39. You get him at the 11:09. How much of that was a target for you tonight?
Yeah, I can play both sides of that Cleveland running game. I like Chubb. If there's anybody that's going to come back from that catastrophic knee injury, it's going to be somebody like him because he's already done it. We've already seen that. However, you have to also play the other side of the risk-reward game. And if Chubb is not significantly behind, but again, it was a major injury. So what are we hoping for here? I think at best we're hoping that Chubb is like on the TJ Hawkinson timeline, gets back in November. Okay, Jerome Ford can put up low-end RB2, definitely high-end RB3 numbers in that time. And that's in the 11th round. I'm more than okay with that.
The Permar comment that I want to talk about here is he says, and this he means it because it's all caps, avoid all Browns because of Watson. Not a fan of the Browns offense this year. I think that's a little harsh, especially when you're talking about an 11th round pick. I'm willing to take the upside there as well. Speaking of upside picks, Blake Corum at the 12:04. Doug, yet another guy you get about a round and a half later than ADP, and there's some upside there with him in Los Angeles.
Agreed. And so one of the things I did this year, I tried to do it in previous years in this competition, is I wanted to track, especially I only had time to track the last two drafts, so 4 and 5, and that's one of the advantages to be in the sixth draft. Yep. So I wanted, so I got to play not FFPC ADP, but I got to play Pros versus Joe ADP.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's the same thing here. I love my receiver room, so now I'm taking upside shots. I'm going to take another one. I'm on the clock here again. I'm going to take another upside shot. Probably a little bit, actually a full round ahead of what has happened the first two nights. But this is somebody that we know. I'm going to go ahead and click here. This is somebody who I think second half of the season we're looking at. I think he begins the season, or maybe by week 4 is the primary passing down back in New York. And I think he can, if not overtake Devin Singletary, I think he ends up splitting work with him and probably getting the passing downs.
Hey, Balky, can you scroll up for us?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. I always point that out for sure every time I do it, which is a lot on this show. I keep forgetting. At a different board. But Tyrone Tracy, 1509, running back 58. We love the pass catching chops of Tyrone Tracy there for sure. A couple rookie running backs late. What's wrong with that? I love the upside. I love the unknown mystery box sort of viability that these players have late. And when you're trying to win the whole thing, Tracy's a good way to do it. For what it's worth, Doug, he goes at the 15-10 in the FFPC best ball tournament. So it's right on par there. Maybe a little bit earlier than what he had been going in the previous Pros versus Joe's drafts. But listen, it's all about getting your guys. Can you tell us, and you don't have to reveal too much here, but you got 5 picks left. How do you complete this team construction knowing you have 2 quarterbacks, 2 tight ends, and then split roughly half and half with running backs and receivers so far?
We'll see. I need to add to my receiver room. I do. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be, vertical shot guys where, I'm playing for the upside weeks. And if, somebody hits for, 20 or 25, 2 weeks, that makes him worth a 15th round pick, or 16th round pick. I'm not sure if that's the case, but I think I've taken enough shots at, I'll probably take one more shot at running back, but now I think it's more about trying to, guys like Michael Wilson, for example, he's going to come off the board here shortly. Those are the kind of guys that I'm going to take shots on here for the rest of the draft.
Doug, we'll have you make one more pick on air, which would be tremendous. 16:04. You've been on the clock, or you'll be on the clock here shortly as soon as Don Terminello makes his pick. Have you been sniped at all tonight?
Dom's got me a couple times, but fortunately, each time it was choosing between one or two guys. So,
okay.
I told him he got me on Zamir White. I was kind of hoping for Zamir White to last the one more pick, but again, that stuff's going to happen. I don't. I'm fortunate to only have feels like getting gotten sniped twice.
Right. Yes. Let's see. What do we got here? You are on the clock. Derek Carr is off the board. 45 seconds left. Take us through the mind of Doug Orth for this pick, Doug.
That's a great question. I'm probably targeting the deep shot guys. I know I'm looking at maybe the one more upside shot at running back that I was talking about.
And while you look too, I can
yes.
point out, and I know Farrell will agree with me. There are some exciting receivers here that are still left on the board, especially in a best ball format that you could go after too, especially if you're trying to add to your receiver room here. So that's the beauty of these FFPC drafts. You can get to the 16th round, and if you have a balanced team, even if you don't have a balanced team, you can go any which way. You could go wide receiver, tight end, quarterback. You chose running back, my friend. Doug, tell us about Audric Estime.
Yeah, that.
Oh, get excited, Doug. It's a good pick.
It was a really good pick.
It's a good pick.
So, yeah, okay, look, 16th round. Does anybody have a clue what's going on in Denver?
Nope.
Besides Jill McLaughlin maybe getting some passing down work, and he should. In the last week we've heard Javonte Williams is the greatest thing since, of course, sliced bread, or since the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm sorry, the Philadelphia Eagles. But you don't bring in Estime to be an early down grinder, and then he's inactive on game day. I don't. There's something not right about that situation in Denver. So again, what are we getting? 16th round. I'm willing to take the shot that I can get a few ground and pound weeks out of him in not a good offense, but what should be a ground and pound offense.
Doug, it has been a treat talking with you tonight. Before we let you go,
Sure.
Tell us not only what you're doing over at Fantasy Football Today, but tell us about the All Out Blitz podcast you do with JJ Winter.
Yeah, so we're relatively new. We started right after the draft. We're going to air tomorrow because of the draft tonight. We postponed we're usually on Tuesday. We usually record on Tuesday nights. Airs on airs on Wednesday morning or afternoon, and we're going to recap this draft with Howard Bender tomorrow. So
nice.
After that, I think I can tell you the next few shows. We're going to have Dr. Jesse Morse the following week, and then we're going to do what's kind of become popular here lately, like a draft plan show the week after that.
And that is anywhere you get podcasts. Followed on the X at All Out Blitz FF. JJ Winter and Doug Orth on that podcast, and of course Fantasy Football Today, fftoday.com, at Doug Orth on the X. You still have that streak alive of no losing seasons in high stakes fantasy football, Doug?
Yeah, I'm coming off my best year ever. So yeah, it was year 24 was better than the first 23, or year 23. I've lost count how many years, but last year was better than the previous 20 some. So yes,
he's just like a fine wine, ladies and gentlemen, just getting better with age.
Getting better.
Drafting a team that keeps getting better as we move on tonight. Doug, thank you so much for hopping aboard, dude. Appreciate it. Keep up all the great work. Enjoy the rest of this draft and go get them again this season, man.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, guys. You do a great job.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.
Thank you, Doug. Doug Orth, drafting from the 9 spot tonight as we motor through the 17th round. A player, Terp, I'll talk with you about him because he's an Eagle. A player I'm starting to warm up to quite a bit, and maybe it's bad because it seems like a lot of people are warming up to Will Shipley. He goes in the 17th round tonight. Kevin Borg takes him as running back 61. He's been working with the ones at some points during training camp, a player that seems to really have the backup job in Philadelphia. And if Barkley is to go down, maybe Will Shipley's the guy. I really like him there.
I agree. I definitely like him out of the Gainwell-Shipley debate that's been kind of popular around these streets. The only thing about it is Gainwell is popular with the coaching staff. I mean, Sirianni likes him. Shipley's going to have to earn it. But, he's already getting touches with the ones. That's always a good sign this early in camp, and he seems to be taking advantage of them, which is always a good sign. It's interesting because, like I said, 17th round, you're taking a shot. If you're not a Barkley guy and you're not believing in Barkley, you should be taking shots on this backfield because it's going to be a lucrative one for fantasy football this year. So if you're not drafting much Barkley, you should be mixing in Shipley and Gainwell. And I think Shipley is the guy that's going to take the job if something does happen to Barkley, which hopefully it never does. So don't mind the pick at all. He's definitely my choice if I had a pick.
Some of the greatest moments in history, they said that the Beatles would never become the greatest rock band of all time. They said we'd never send a man to the moon. They said the Berlin Wall would never fall down. And they said that the sports gambling podcast guys would never be able to draft 4 tight ends. Well, I'm happy to report that has joined the pantheon of epic moments in the history of planet Earth. Isaiah Likely, Chig Okonkwo, Mike Gesicki, Dawson Knox, with apologies to the aforementioned Beatles, the new Fab Four is here for Ryan Kramer.
Not the sexiest room, the sexiest room, but
may I raise my predictor board?
Yeah, please. So Merrill had listed Okonkwo right on there. Who else did you have? You had Ben Sinnott, and then you had Mike Gesicki. And who was the last one? I missed the last one, Farrell.
Oh, well, those guys are still to come, so I don't want to they may go more tight end. If they had gone, if they the likely thing throws me a curve. So you knew they were going to go Okonkwo, and I was expecting Gesicki. Terp, I think they hit on 2.5 of 4 tight ends.
I would say 2. I mean, it depends where they're being drafted. I like Gesicki, and I don't mind Likely. I'm not the biggest Chig guy, but it makes sense. I mean, he's probably going to be. If you believe in the Titans offense like I do, it's going to be Hopkins, it's going to be Ridley, and yeah, Boyd's there. But if they feature a tight end, you would think it's Chig. It's just so far out of camp. You've been hearing it's going to be tight end by committee. There's going to be a bunch of guys that are going to be rotated. So that worries you, but I mean, he's clearly the most talented of what they got. And when you're building a structure like this, you take a shot on a talented player.
They did about as good as they could do. I'll say
all things considered, I probably would have took Jelani Woods over Dawson Knox, but other than that, I agree.
Would you have taken Ertz over Knox?
No.
Yeah, I wouldn't have either.
He used to play for the Eagles. That's why I asked.
Oh no, that was he brought us a Super Bowl, and I will always be forever indebted to him. But his great days of fantasy football, outside of maybe a couple weeks to start the season, are over.
I will say I can tell myself a story with all 4 of these guys, right? If Andrews goes down, Likely could be huge.
Kincaid goes down.
Kincaid, if he goes down, Dawson Knox will be factoring into that heavily. Gesicki is a player that could be in an offense that utilizes his pass catching talents much more so than his previous employer did. And then obviously, if we love Tennessee, if we love the fact that they're going to be tossing the ball around the field, Chig Okonkwo should benefit from that as well. So I think you could do a lot worse than what they did. Waiting as long as they did. Is this a record for pros versus Joes? Only taking or not taking a tight end until the 14th round? It very well might be. I always harken back. I haven't told this story in several years, and I can't remember who it was, but there was a pro who didn't necessarily understand the format, did not realize it was best ball. He took 1 tight end in his whole draft, and it was Antonio Gates, and he ended up winning the whole thing. Darren Armani could probably tell us who that was, but I do remember that. Everybody's saying his team was dead in the water, and then he won not only his league, but he won the whole pros versus Joes challenge.
Sometimes it just works out. Sometimes it just works out.
Sometimes it works out. Indeed,
drafting good players works.
Yes, the David Hubbard strategy of winning fantasy football. Just draft good players. That's all. Players. Easy game. All right, I'm going to scroll down here. I'm sorry, I'm slacking on that once again. I am not slacking on bringing on our next guest. He is a former 2-time top 10 finisher in the FFPC Pros versus Joes Challenge. He has had 4 top 25 finishes overall. You know him as the director of forecasting over at 4for4 Football, which you can follow on the X at 4for4 Football. Follow him on the X at 4for4_John. It is John Paulson joining us tonight live on the show from the 11 spot. John, good evening. How do you feel about your team as you only have a couple of picks left?
Yeah, you guys really didn't talk about my team a whole lot, so I thought I'd call in and
You're the man.
get your opinion on it.
This is how we bait the pros to call in. We don't talk about your team.
Totally ignore it.
And
I would have you know that I brought up your Brock Purdy pick, and something was earlier in the show said about Raheem Mostert. I don't remember because, like him, I'm old. But I did. There was commentary about Mostert, so you might not have been in the room.
Right. It was bad current commentary, so hopefully you weren't listening to it.
So, John, tell us about your team. I'm sorry.
Well, I was expecting to take Laporta at 11. I was not expecting to get Gibbs at 201 or 202. Mm-hmm. I was thinking to get Marvin Harrison there and kind of start tight end receiver. So then I wanted to just hit receiver for a few picks and got Ayuk, Metcalf, and McLaurin in the next 4 picks with Walker sprinkled in there, and then double tap the running back position with Swift and Mostert, and then I was going to be done with running back for a while. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I got the Purdy Ayuk stack. I got the Goff Laporta Gibbs stack.
Yep.
That's why I went tight end there, 9 and 10. And then I just, at this point, thinking I need to fill out my receiver room with some guys. And what I noticed in drafts is, especially best ball, is that if you want to fade receiver a little bit, which I did a bit because I did take some good ones early and then waited a few rounds, there are just a lot of interesting names, for best ball, especially where you don't have to actually go out there and start them every week and try to figure out who to start. But
those Patriots receivers.
Yeah, I got 2 Patriot receivers with Polk and Baker, the 2 rookies that are looking really good in camp. Michael Wilson, who came on last year, and then I got the two cheaper Packer receivers, Dobbs and Wicks, and I'm really happy to nab Jonnu Smith in this one. He's my favorite tight end too, playing in Mike McDaniel's office down in Miami this year.
And Braylon Allen, another player who's garnering a lot of praise in camp. And I'll tell you this too, John. I'm in Northeast Wisconsin, so obviously for my terrestrial radio station, we cover the Green Bay Packers quite a bit. And so many of the people, so many of the beat writers, so many of the pundits who are watching Packers practice, you ask them who's standing out. Who's a player that has really wowed you. And once again, it over and over again from multiple people, everybody keeps talking about how good of a training camp Romeo Doubs is having right now. A lot of people talk about Watson, and obviously Wicks is a guy that's getting a lot of pub in high stakes drafts. Jaden Reed obviously there as well. But Doubs, they said his route running has just been phenomenal, going up against the likes of Jair Alexander and a seemingly healthy Eric Stokes as well, another former first-round pick, going up and getting balls, like high pointing balls, just looking super athletic. And he's a player that we kind of forget about because he doesn't have the draft pedigree of Christian Watson. He didn't necessarily have the big playability of Wicks. He didn't necessarily have the consistency of Jaden Reed, but he does a lot of things really, really well. You went up and got him at the 11-11 tonight. I think that is a fantastic pick for you.
Well, thank you. I'm a Packer fan as well. I'm from southeastern Wisconsin, Pewaukee, grew up in Pewaukee Lake.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm the 3rd or 4th most famous Pewaukeean after the Watt triplets.
Yes, exactly.
But that's my claim to fame, I guess. So yeah, I mean, when you hear Jordan Love talk about Dobbs, it's clear that he's like his favorite receiver, and he did say last year that when things break down, he's always looking for Romeo Doubs. So happy to get him there. And if there's any sort of injury again to Christian Watson, I think both Wicks and Dobbs will be on the field a ton with Jaden Reed, and there'll be a couple good picks there late in this draft.
I think that and just looking for those cheap, not necessarily stacks, but getting a guy like a pair like Dobbs and Wicks, getting a pair like Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. Well, I found out from Coop on X today that the Patriots media guide says you pronounce Javon as Javon and not Javon, like I've been doing it this whole time, which sounds weird. But that's the way apparently the media guide has it. So I got to switch to that as well. Do you have a pick that you're most proud of tonight? I asked the Sports Gambling Podcast guys about this, John. Did you have a pick that was that you were pumping your fist about? Was it Jahmyr Gibbs at 202? Was it somebody else that you didn't expect to fall to you but did?
Yeah, I'm not. If you listen to my podcast, I'm pretty low key. I don't get too excited about anything unless the Packers or win. You're getting to the Super Bowl, which has been a while. I would say everywhere was a little bit of disappointment, and then best case scenario, maybe Jaden Daniels would fall to me there in the 9th, and he didn't. So then I was able to take Purdy and Goff, and I think I was pretty happy there to get those stacks locked in. And I would actually say that in this tight end premium, getting Jonnu Smith as my number 2, and it might seem stupid or whatever, but I really think with his speed in that offense, he's going to really surprise people this year.
Are you, as you're coming up here to make your final 2 picks of the draft, 2 quarterbacks going in the 9th and 10th? You have Laporta obviously in the first round, Jonnu Smith at the 13-11, so 2 tight ends. Do you feel good enough to stand pat at both those positions here?
Yeah, I'm looking at both positions, and they're just really picked over. There's just not a lot of even guys that I would think could be sleepers. Bellinger was actually an interesting one to me. George Kittle name checked him last year as a player on the rise. So I'll probably just grab another receiver, another running back here, and hope that these 2 quarterbacks and these 2 tight ends stay healthy this year.
Right now, John Paulson from 4 for 4, 3, let's see, count them, 8 receivers on his squad right now, 6 running backs. You are now on the clock. Take us through the mind of Paulson for the 1911 pick, John.
Yeah, well, you're in the 19th round of a pretty sharp draft, and a lot of those guys I like to see there are not available. So I think I'm gonna grab Trey Sermon here from Indy.
The
number 2, likely the number 2 behind Jonathan Taylor, who's been a little bit dinged up.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, absolutely.
Makes a lot of sense.
So Sermon's the pick, 71st running back off the board.
He should be.
To John Paulson. John, tell us a little bit about what you're doing and what you have been doing over at 4 for 4.
Yeah, so I just dropped my stats article, and it used to be 99 stats, but a Mitch ain't one, and it was dedicated to Mitch Trubisky. But this year, it just got to be a really long read, so I switched it up to 44 for the 4 for 4 site, and it's these stats that I discover as I go through and do all of my player blurbs. So a bunch of really good splits, good information to have there. And then now I would be starting on my draft day strategy annual article where I just kind of lay out my draft plan for this year. And it's really, for me, it's come down to, I'm on the clock again. It's really come down to kind of figuring out which quarterback and which tight ends I want, and kind of building the draft plan around that, because those onesie positions, I think for me, drive, if I can find value at those 2 positions, I can usually find good value at running back and receiver elsewhere, depending on the round.
Rob Abbott and Mark Verrett have completed their draft. They end up going with Elijah Moore and Kenneth Gainwell. They're the first team done with their squad tonight. 30 seconds on the clock for John Paulson. A lot of upside here. Or I should say not a lot of upside remaining here in the draft. But if I know John Paulson and how accurate his rankings have been over the years, I think we can pull a rabbit out of the hat here, John.
Yeah, why not Jalen Hyatt? He's been looking good in camp, and
Perfect pick for this.
And kind of a deep baller, deep ball guy. Lots of targets available in that after Neighbors. I mean, there's really no number 2 there. Wandale Robinson maybe, but Hyatt has apparently impressed Dable in camp, and I saw a couple good tweets about him playing well. So young guy, a lot of upside.
A guy who always impresses us is John Paulson, not only on the Pros versus Joes, but everything he's doing over at 4for4.com. Make sure you're following him on the X for the latest and everything he's releasing, including the piece that he just released today, or was it yesterday?
Yeah, I think it went up yesterday.
Yesterday, okay.
44 key stats you should know before your fantasy draft.
And clearly, if you are drafting, you need to be reading that article at 4for4_John. He is John Paulson, one of the most accurate rankings out there. So glad that you were able to join the show tonight. Thank you, John, and good draft.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
That is John Paulson, ladies and gentlemen. So good to hear from him. As we motor through this final draft here, or this final round of the final Pros versus Joes draft this evening. Fantastic stuff from the drafters tonight. I had a point I wanted to make with somebody who got selected that was not selected by John. And of course, I didn't write it down. And now I have forgotten the point I wanted to make. Anything that you guys wanted to talk about as you notice some of these names going off the board the last couple of rounds here?
I'm
Nothing
getting a
crazy.
little melancholy because I'm going to miss Terp.
I mean, you can come see me anytime.
But like Jalen Hyatt. Now that's an interesting pick. That's the same. This is his number 2 season, right, guys? So he's the same elements of some of these rookies we're talking about. Let's give them a shot in their second year as well. Some of the receivers can avoid the second year bias, but if you didn't bring it, most of them are going to suffer from that. They're going to be way down the board. They're going to go undrafted, and God forbid if you have 2 unproductive years, your name is Rashad Bateman and nobody's drafting. And Balky, there it is. I don't want to steal your thunder, but finally a player that appears to be emerging amongst this rookie class. I can't believe I thought he was going to go undrafted. Look who showed up in the middle of the 20th.
So we're talking about Carson Steele here.
Carson, who we're talking about? Malachi Corley.
Oh, Malachi
Very
Corley.
surprising he fell this far.
Yeah, very, because it's gotten better since he's got to camp.
Yeah, and Brian Santos goes with another guy who is being talked up by his team, and if you follow the drumbeat there, Dylan Lobby is a guy that we should probably be taking higher than the 19th round here. As we,
I have a question. Who is Carson Steele?
Carson Steele is a Chiefs running back.
Yeah.
Okay.
He is. I don't
Never heard of him.
I don't know a whole lot about him. I
know pretty deep. I when it comes to the positions, almost in everybody in the NFL, but I've never heard of Carson Steele.
He, everybody's chasing after the
Chiefs number 2.
The Chiefs number 2, and it could be the Louis. What is it? Zamet, the rugby guy. You have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the former first-round pick. You have Deneric Prince, who's been working in with the ones, and apparently Carson Steele as well.
Keontae Ingram there.
Keontae Ingram, Christian Okoye,
Jamal Charles, 50-year-old
Larry Johnson, Priest Holmes. They're all there right now. So that's where we're at on that.
You were talking about 20th round draft picks before. I like Jalen Tolbert a lot. He's definitely a guy that I'm targeting a ton at the end of drafts. I mean, it's not the sexiest pick in the world, but in an offense we know it's going to throw the ball a lot, especially if Dak gets in camp.
He was sexy last year. He's just a good player.
2 years ago. It was 2 years ago last year.
Oh, was it 2 years ago? I think he's still driving.
Brandon Cooks is one hit away from being in trouble. There's nobody else really there. It doesn't seem like they're spending $1. So Jalen Tolbert's definitely a guy that if I'm drafting in 20-round drafts, I'm going to get a good amount of.
Doug Orth chiming in on the whole Carson Steele. Were we thinking of Remington Steele? No, I think Pierce Brosnan's the one guy we can count out of the Chiefs backfield. I don't think that's happening this year, but you never know.
Remington Steele, man.
Yeah, Remington Steele.
It was just a television show on NBC.
Man.
Hey, Mr. Green is offering to buy us drinks.
Yes.
Never say no to a free drink.
And
Right.
it's challenging to come up with a good bourbon there, but when it comes out of the plastic bottle bourbon, we can still work with mixers to save it. So we'll take you up on that, Mr. Green.
Mix it around a little bit, you'll be all right.
It's got that VOB. It's
the Pros versus Joes live has wrapped up. You can check out all those draft boards over at fantasymojo.com. I'm sure we'll put them on our socials as well. The slow draft is still ongoing. That one should be wrapping up sometime this week as well. I want to thank endless thanks to Farrell Elliott, to Dave Terpoli, the 11-time FFPC champ. Follow him on X at Dave Terp. And then Farrell, of course, check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship. KFFSC.com is where to go if you want to draft live in Cincinnati in a couple of weeks, if you want to draft live in Louisville in a few weeks, or online as well. KFFSC.com is where to go for that. So good to talk with you guys. The great part about it is, Terp, I'll be doing a show with you on Thursday, and Farrell will be doing a show with you on Friday. So this is not goodbye. It's just until we meet again.
Feels a lot
we got a busy week.
We do have a busy week, and it's going to be a fun one for sure. Terp, Farrell, be good. Thank you so much for hopping on.
See you.
That is Dave Terpoli. That is Farrell Elliott, and that is the completion of the 2024 live edition of the FFPC Pros versus Joes. I do want to thank tonight's guests. So good to have them on. Ryan Kramer, Sean Green, Doug Orth, and John Paulson. Want to thank Farrell Elliott, Dave Terpoli, Darren Armani, the FFPC, our producer, mutual friend Rob, audio engineer, my best friend Bryce, and of course, all of you listeners, viewers, streamers, downloaders. Coming up this week on Thursday on the Better Sports Network at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Dave Terpoli and Theo Greminger will be my guests as they draft in the $125 FFPC Best Ball Tournament, gunning for a $300,000 grand prize. We'll have that entire draft streamed on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show, as well as the FFPC socials that evening as well. Then on Friday, Farrell and I are back at it at, I believe, I have to check the start on this. I think it is 9 p.m. Eastern Time we'll cover a live Fantasy Pros Championship draft that night as well. Both of those leagues have spots available. So if you want to draft live with us, we welcome that. Go to myffpc.com and sign up for them there. You can also sign up for the FFPC main event there, as well as the FFPC Superflex Best Ball Tournament, the FFPC Empire Dynasty Startups, and the FFPC Dynasty Startups there as well. High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour this Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And then, of course, the Better Sports Network this Thursday with Theo Greminger, Dave Terpoli, drafting live at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. What a ride it's been. Thank you all so much for watching, especially all of you who have stuck around for the duration of all 6 drafts. You are what makes this engine go. Remember to like this video. Remember to subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and make sure that you're hitting the notification bell so you'll be notified each and every time we go live. Next time will be this Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Terp, Theo, myself on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show. It's going to be a blast, just like this was. Your week officially continues now.